Lizzie's fingers trembled as she adjusted the biosensor array attached to Dorian's temple. The lab's sterile white walls seemed to close in around them, monitors displaying cascading streams of data that made her stomach knot with each passing second. Heart rate elevated again, she murmured, checking the holographic display. Adrenaline spike at 340%. Dorian, you need to breathe. Dorian sat rigid in the examination chair, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle twitching beneath his skin. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool temperature of the medical bay. I'm trying, Liz. It's not. I can't shut it off. 3 months ago, the Dominion Science Council had assigned Lizzie to the Human Integration Program aboard Research Station Kepler 442. As the station's lead xenobiologist, she'd studied dozens of species Calthrine crystal-based consciousness, even the gaseous need. But humans were supposed to be simple, baseline carbon-based, bilateral symmetry, standard mammalian configuration. She'd been catastrophically wrong. The incident in Bay 7 had revealed the truth. When the containment failure released a xanthic preditoral teeth and armored scales, evolved on a 2-3G death world, everyone had frozen. Everyone except Dorian. Lizzie had watched through the security footage 100 times since. The way his pupils had dilated to pinpoints, the way every muscle in his body had gone from relaxed to combat-ready in 0.3 seconds. The xanthic had lunged 300 kilograms of killing machine, and Dorian had simply ... moved. No hesitation, no fear response, paralysis, just pure, efficient violence. He'd killed it with a fire extinguisher and a piece of broken railing in 47 seconds. Now, weeks later, she was trying to understand what she'd witnessed. Cortisol levels are still climbing, Lizzie said, studying the neurological scans. Your amygdala is in constant overdrive. Dorian, according to these readings, you've been in fight or flight mode since the incident. Feels more like fight or fight, he said, attempting a weak smile. His hands gripped the armrests hard enough to turn his knuckles white. Lizzie pulled up a comparative analysis on the main screen. Neural patterns from the station's other species alongside Dorian's readings. The differences were staggering. When a Vrexian encounters danger, she explained, gesturing at the data, their colony mind distributes the threat assessment across thousands of nodes. Fear becomes manageable, diluted. The Calthrines simply reconfigure their consciousness to avoid trauma. Most species have built-in safeties, psychological circuit breakers, to prevent self-destruction from stress. She turned to face him. But humans, your biology doesn't have an off switch. You have an on switch that just keeps switching on. Adrenaline, norepinephrine, cortisol. Your body floods itself with combat chemicals, and your brain rewires itself for maximum lethality. Every threat assessment pathway lights up simultaneously. Dorian's laugh was hollow. So I'm broken, no? Lizzie moved closer, her bioluminescent markings pulsing with concern. Vrexian empathy response she couldn't suppress. You're terrifying. There's a difference. She pulled up the genetic analysis she'd been avoiding showing him. I've been going through human evolutionary data, trying to understand why your species developed this way. Do you know what your ancestors were? Prey animals, Lizzie corrected. For millions of years, humans were hunted, eaten. Your evolutionary ancestors lost so many members to predators that survival itself became encoded in your DNA, as a permanent state of almost You evolved in an environment so hostile that you had to develop the ability to override every natural limitation your body has. She highlighted a section of code in his genome. This is why human mothers can lift vehicles off their children. Why soldiers fight for hours with mortal wounds. Your body can suppress pain, ignore exhaustion, and push past physical limits that would kill most species. You call it adrenaline rush or second wind. We call it biological insanity. Dorian stared at the data. And the kill mode. Lizzie hesitated. That's what I'm trying to tell you. There is no kill mode. There's only degrees of threat response. When the xanthic appeared, your brain didn't switch to some separate combat state, it just stopped holding back. Humans are always capable of that level of violence. You just choose not to deploy it. The implications hung in the sterile air between them. The council is afraid, she admitted quietly. They've reviewed the footage. They're asking questions about human integration, about whether your species should be allowed in multi-species spaces. They want to know if you can be trusted. Dorian met her eyes, and for a moment she saw something flicker in his expression. Not anger, but a deep, weary sadness. Can I? Lizzie thought about the hours after Base 7. How Dorian had sat in the corridor, hands shaking, throwing up from the adrenaline crash. How he'd apologized to the xanthic's corpse. How he'd cried when he thought no one was watching. She thought about how humans had built societies despite being walking biological weapons, how they created art and music and philosophy while carrying this capacity for violence in every cell, how they chose every single day not to be what their evolution had made them capable of being. The question isn't whether you can be trusted, Lizzie said finally. The question is whether we understand what trust means when it comes to humans. You're not dangerous because you have a kill mode. You're remarkable because you have an off mode and you actually use it. She deactivated the biosensors, and Dorian's readings slowly began to normalize. Not completely, they might never be completely normal again, but enough. Come on, she said, offering her hand. Let's get you out of this lab. The council can wait. Right now, you need to prove to yourself that you're still in control. Dorian took her hand, and together they walked toward the door, a human learning to trust himself, and a xenobiologist learning that the most alien thing about humans wasn't their biology, it was their choice to be gentle despite it.